Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
This week, I felt like, it's funny with the human body, because I feel like what happens is at a certain point when you start doing something, you feel great, right? And then after a period of time, it happens to all of us. We start kind of overstaying our welcome. So I love running. I like doing cardio, but last week I just felt myself really exhausted. I don't know. Is it just the time of the year? Is it the fact that I came back from a trip, a week after that I was exhausted from? My dad's best friend died a week before that. You have all these stresses that add up, and it could very well just be that. But I removed aerobic work just this week. I haven't done anything since Saturday, and I'm feeling like my energy's starting to come back. I know it's a good decision. At a certain point, we like getting back on it because we like the way it allows us to feel. But I'm wondering what you think. I'm wondering if you think most of us out there are just doing way too much of it and burning ourselves out way too much.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's different if you're a dedicated aerobic, endurance type athlete. And that's
just primarily doing that.
Yeah, but you're doing all this other stuff. So I think it does start to layer on top of each other. And then there is a breaking point. But if you were just doing running, maybe some circuit training, lighter weights and all that. But I mean, that's the same thing. Like, I remember I was doing some longer runs with a client. She was an actress and she wanted to do 10K runs. I'm like, oh shit. Right. And that was when I was my strongest. And then I started doing these runs on top, trying to maintain my lifting, and it just killed me. Like, I had injuries, I had back problems, because I just think there's an incompatibility that just sort of basically buries you, because you can't have all these things coexist. So together. So
that's a big problem, I think, and I think it really comes down to also training intensity. So if you're someone that is coming in there taking that 80% approach, you definitely have probably a little more leeway. But I think, like with anything else, that's why it's so difficult when someone's asking you, well, I do this and with this. I'm like, well, I don't know. How are you? What's going on with your sleep? What's going on with your work? What's going on with those stresses? Like, how have you been handling things lately? How have you been handling your recovery? But we're always relating things to when it's the best. Like, oh my God, at some point when I started this, I felt great, and now I feel terrible. And you're just kind of like, all right, well, you're not always going to gradually climb, right? You're not.
And you were an athlete. I was an athlete. And so technology is killing me, because every time I'm looking at the watch going, oh, it's got to be faster this time, or I've got to do something better. And so we're doing these longer walks in this trail near our house, and we're trying to walk as fast as we can, right? So every time it's like, oh, what's our time at this point? Oh, there's the tree, right? What's our time? And we're like, wait a minute, just walk, like just enjoy the walk, right? Because you get very competitive, and I think that creates an anxiety, and it just adds up, right? And you're just like totally stressed. And why am I so stressed that I'm not burning fat efficiently?
It's so funny that you said that, because last week when I think I got like 3 runs in, and I went up to the track one day and I did a run at the track, and normally I'm always counting laps, and there's this monotony on there. It's like 1, 2. And like what I do is I change lanes like every lap. Like I'll run in lane 1, lap 1, lane 2, lap 2, right? And I'll get through, the first 6 lanes, and then I'll start back to lane 1, right? So you get through, 12 lanes and you're at 3 miles. It's just simple math. A lap equals a quarter mile, right? So I would do that. And then I got up there one day and I'm like, just don't count laps. Like the whole idea today is to get a 30-minute steady state run. I knew where I needed my heart rate around. And I went in and I just kind of released the parking brake a bit and just went, and found myself getting into a really nice groove. And when I got back and looked at my first beat, my intensity increased, and my time that I ran, I'm sorry, the amount of work that I got in that time increased. And I was just like, wow, like I actually had a better run than I did the 10 previous times when I was sitting there counting and kind of being methodical a little bit. Like, and there is, just being free and going sometimes, you're absolutely right, can relieve that level of stress. And I think that was the first thing I related it to. Like, there wasn't that stress of knowing every single time, what number is it, and I don't know if that, I mean, it sounds like it's kind of,
Well, I
you've
was
been there.
listening to our interview with David Kilgore, because we posted that. And the interesting thing was, is I don't, I was trying to ask him about technology and this, and do you track this? And I think what makes him, obviously, good is
Great.
that he doesn't care, right? He just goes and runs, right?
There's something to be said about that. I mean, even from a nutritional standpoint, like when we started asking him, I think we asked him about nutrition, and
Yeah, yeah.
he was like, yeah, I've tried to really measure and do certain things, and I found myself getting worse. Like, I feel like intuitively he just likes to go, and when he's really hungry and he's craving something, he has it. He's not a bodybuilder. He's not training to be on the cover of a magazine. He's training to run a distance in less time and recover more efficiently. It's really that simple for him. And some people, and I had this conversation with Chronometer the other day, one of the people that work over there. I'm like, oh my God, it'd be so interesting if he tracked. I'm like, yeah, if he tracked and you were able to maybe get him into a caloric surplus and make sure that he was consuming, in that surplus of what he's burning, yeah, that would probably help him out. But like, how do you get someone into a surplus who's running 15 to 19 hours? Yes, and it's not every day, but he's like, when I went out and I ran 4 miles with him, he didn't even break a sweat. And when I say he didn't break a sweat, he did not break a sweat. And we were running in the heat. So it's kind of fascinating if you think about it. He was like, oh no, this is great. Just great to stretch my legs out. I'm like dumping sweat and like out of breath.
And he's in New York City, like he
Yeah,
lives.
yeah.
So
He
where
lives
where
near.
do his long runs happen? Around the perimeter? Is that the easiest way?
He travel. I mean, I never asked him that. I know he travels a lot. So he's always like, every time I talk to him, like, where are you? Colorado, Florida. Like, he's always
Hmm.
somewhere doing some run. So I find that interesting, because he's kind of like running around the world, and he's, basically running around the world. But I've ran with him in the city, and we literally ran right through New York City. We were running around the perimeter. We were running through the heart of it. Like, we actually have that video up on our YouTube channel. It was fun because, we're like sprinting through Times Square. It was a blast, but, you could just see there's just such a gear there where, I think he just has that mental advantage where most people out there would go and run, 6 miles, 7 miles and just get bored. He's talking about getting lost for, 50, 60 miles. Or I think he said on there, he goes, he'll just turn around, he'll get a thought in his head, and the next thing you know, he'll ran 15 miles. Like, that's fascinating. But I don't know. Have you ever, because he did talk about, as you train it, it gets better, and you get more adapted to those conditions. But did
Yeah.
you ever notice that when you were running distances, like, it not only did it get easier physically, but mentally?
Yeah, I'm not a distance runner by any means, but yeah, I think the acclimation thing is interesting, because you do adapt, right? If you're like if he trained at altitude, he'd adapt to altitude. If he trained in the desert heat, I'm sure he'd adapt. But I think it takes a special kind of person to last that long and endure and allow that adaptation to happen. And most people will just like forget this, I am moving to Seattle and I'm going to do it because like a lot of distance runners go to Oregon
Yeah,
because you can run long, without having a lot of heat exhaustion and stuff like that. It's a very temperate place to train, right? So that Bowerman Track Club, I think they have like this almost like a track surface all through a little forest or something like that. But it's very interesting. But yeah, I don't think people move to Texas to be a distance runner or some of the hotter Arizona to train for a marathon unless you're kind of different. So
yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely interesting when you're in that environment and you're doing it. Especially when I was younger, it's like, I don't feel any weaker. I feel like I'm actually physically stronger, and I feel like my body composition got better. But The thing I do feel the difference in is there was so much frivolous training back then where it was just like, oh, I'm going to lift and I'm going to get a run today. I'm going to get a run tomorrow. And every day was like 5, 6 miles, 6, 7 miles. A couple of days a week, I'd go run 13 miles with a buddy of mine. And you just run and lift heavy and run and lift heavy and run and lift heavy. And it was like, you were one night sleep away from like being completely caught up. The thing, like, I never remember at that age. I think the difference now is that you'll see yourself get run down. And that's where you have to be a little bit more strategic with your training and when you're sprinkling, these cardio sessions in. Where back then, you're 21, 22 years old, bounce back a lot quicker. Now, I feel like that's the difference. I don't feel any like I still know for a fact you can put muscle on as you age, 100%. I've been doing it. I've seen people do it. I just had a guy, a challenger in his 60s, go and do a DEXA scan, and he showed that he was actually able to increase muscle mass. So you can, it is possible. He is increasing his endurance. He is increasing his mobility, but it's that recovery element. It's, being able to just sprinkle stuff on there, just be like, oh, I'm going to just frivolously start doing this and, just catch right up. We don't have the luxury of that always happening. And I wanted to get your opinion on it.
Yeah, it's all, I mean, it's mental on the one hand, because, I go through bouts of like, okay, let's get back into lifting, especially in the winter when I can't run outside or it's not as nice to do it. So we'll go through the lifting phase and I'll notice like, oh, okay, my clothes fit differently. And so it is possible. It's just getting into that consistent mindset around, okay, we're going to go through a cycle of whatever hypertrophy and I think it's so tough for people to commit to it. And I'm thinking like going through COVID might have helped people because they had more time to focus and rediscover like training. So, you know, um, that's the big thing for me. And then you got to be a bit careful because, like you said, you could be a little more hazardous with what you chose and when you did it, and warm up and all that. Now it can really bite you in the butt. And I know that if I had an injury 20 years ago, I could essentially just lower the volume a bit and run through it and I'd be fine. Now I have to actually take time and make sure everything's healing. Like I'm taking, a collagen supplement with vitamin C to make sure everything's, repairing and stuff. And it does work, but you got to take your time and you can't be like you used to be. So
Right.
it's interesting.
Yes, it is. What are your recovery hacks now? What are specific things that you find yourself doing more and more of?
I honestly, I spend more time on a stationary bike than I used to because I find that I can get those low intensity aerobic sort of hours in and not have that impact stress, right? And then the walking too. Like we'll do these walks and we'll try to get our heart rate up to about 120 just by brisk walking. And even my wife said like when we start doing these, and there's some hills involved too, so you're really working, you can get up there. But that low intensity work helps make everything else easier and
Yep.
recover. So it's, and I never really did that. Like even when we did aerobic work when I was younger, we'd kind of push it probably too much, because you're thinking, oh, more is better. And wow, that really winded me. Like that was a good workout. But there are sort of layers and stratification of, your exercise, and you got to do this at some point, and sometimes you got to do this. And you kind of learn through trial and error, and you have to adopt an intelligent approach, not a sort of cavalier approach, especially as you get older.
I've definitely been taking the step portion of our day a lot more seriously, and especially with the clientele that I'm working with right now. I had someone reach out to me today, and they've been upping their calories because they were in a heavy deficit. Normally, like, there's a couple different things that we'll see. You might see a 1 to 2 pound increase. It's just water retention. And in the beginning, people get a little bit nervous. And then after a couple of weeks of adapting, they actually see a body composition change in the right way, an energy level change in the right way. And whenever I get someone who's turning around and they're like, oh, gained 2 pounds, where 10, 15 years ago, I might have been like, oh, well, I'm going to take a cardio. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm like, listen, just try and get your steps in. Try and hit that 10K a day, try and hit that 10,000, try and make sure you're hydrated, try and make sure that you're moving around and give it a little bit of time. And let's see what happens over a week or two. You're not going to put on body fat in an extra week or two, but we might actually see an improvement once our body adapts. And I think steps are definitely something that most people are overlooking, and can be incredibly beneficial. And like you said, very safe.
Yeah, just stay busy. It's so easy to, especially in a digital world, to think you're being productive, but you're just sitting there. And
Right.
you know, I will do stuff now, again, because of COVID, where it's about a mile for me to walk to the grocery store, and I'll put a pack on and I'll do my loaded carries because I've got groceries, and I'll do a mile there, a mile back, and I'll go as hard as I can. And I'm like, okay, that was, 4,000 steps and it was loaded. So great.
It's intense too. Do you ever go walking with a weighted vest on?
I just have a 10-pound weighted vest, but I've done it
Yeah.
and it does make a difference, even 10 pounds. It's one of the ones that Charlie Weingroff recommended.
Oh, the hyperwear?
The Hyper. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, they're fantastic. It almost feels like a Kevlar.
Yeah, you could
Like,
take a bullet, right?
yeah, no, it feels like that. But no, that was something Charlie got me turned on to doing that back at Drive. We would just do these lower intensity, heart rate at 120, walking on an incline, getting your arms pumping a bit. And I never really took it seriously early on, but now I'm like, wow, this is pretty magical. Because at the end of the day, what do I really want to do? Like, I want to be able to go into that toolbox and pull out a run once in a while. I mean, that's really my goal. Like, I want to be able to continue to weight train and move the way that I'm moving, but then maybe once a week, if I can go out and just go at a really hard pace, I'd be, super excited about that. Right. So, when it comes to my running career right now, I don't really, sometimes I'll start overreaching and doing more. And I think that, on top of all the other type of training that I'm doing, just starts to become a little bit too much. Plus hockey, plus swinging a golf club.
Oh yeah.
It becomes a lot on the body. And I'm actually surprised my body feels as well, considering the amount of activity that I do. But I mean, right now with our training, we're actually lowering the volume pretty drastically, because we just got into a spurt where we were raising the volume and feeling so good from doing it. But then at a certain point, I think we started overreaching a bit. And then you start feeling like, oh my God, every day for like months, body was feeling incredible. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Traveled to Costa Rica, lost a bunch of sleep, bunch of stress kicked in, got back, had a bad night's sleep. And then out of nowhere, the snowball effect started happening. And then we just literally sat down and we're like, all right, we're going to map this out. All right, we're really cutting down the volume. All right, we're just going to go in and do a couple of feeler sets, and then maybe hit like 2 sets per exercise, because we like to just hit it hard and move on. Like, kind of take the attitude of, all right, we hit that set hard. We're not going to be able to repeat it. Let's move on and just spend the next few weeks to months, maybe months, allowing the body to feel better and allowing the body to have a little bit more energy. And I think already in the first week of doing that, you're starting to feel a little bit more pop on certain lifts. Horizontal pressing the other day was able to kind of find a little bit of an extra gear, and you're like, all right, the energy's there. Deadlifting yesterday was like, all right, was able to squeeze out a few more reps. So just found that extra gear. But the second I was done, moving on. I think that's the biggest mistake of people with their training. They start feeling good and they just want to add and add and add and add. And the first week or two, you might be feeling great from it, right? It's like it's new, you're strong, it's fresh. And at a certain point, you just start seeing that intensity drop. You start noticing that you're getting under the weight. You're like, oh my God, I'm tired. You start moving the weight. Unfortunately, 2 or 3 weeks in, it's feeling heavier. You've been there.
Yeah, it's like watching Bitcoin go up and you're going, okay, at some point it's going to crash, right? Or it's going to correct. So I think what I was going to say was that when I was an athlete competitively, once the season ended, we'd give ourselves 2 to 3 weeks off where we did nothing. And I think maybe that's missing, because now you don't have that competitive season. So you just think, oh, I just got to keep training. So people just train every day, and they don't have some sort of natural, what would they call it? They would call it a
deload.
transition phase in
Yeah.
periodization or something like that. Transitional phase where you do nothing, do very little. And I think that's what people might be missing now, is like, I gotta go. And even, you go on vacation. Oh shit, I gotta find a gym when I go on vacation. It's like, well, no, just relax, man.
Yeah, I know. The tough thing for a lot of people is, you start relating on how this makes you feel, and you just love, you love the endorphins kicking, and you love just, also keeps you on track. It allows you to stay a little bit more healthy. You're maybe making better food decisions. And I've been there also. I mean, I enjoy training, but when I start getting to the point where I'm just tired and I'm like, all right, like I need some time, then I know how to downshift, and I don't really get so fanatical about it where I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to lose everything. Where it was like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you're a little kid and you worry about it. Now it's, if I had to right now take tomorrow and Saturday off and maybe do something really light and easy, or just something movement, like I could do that no problem and not worry. I think the goal really is now to go into your sessions and feel good during your sessions. Like that's really what my goal is. If I can go into the session and just feel like I did in college, feel like a monster, feel like I can move some weight, that is really all I want. Because I know if that's happening, it's kind of the byproduct of everything else. Being efficient. My sleep's good. My nutrition's good. My stress levels are good. So really for me now, it's like, as much as people will look sometimes how I train, and, it really comes down to energy. And, yeah, I do like variability in my training, not from session to session. I like coming in, I like focusing on a plan, whatever the plan's for, 3 months, 2 months, 4 months, whatever that plan is. And I like committing to that plan. If it was a month, committing to that plan, and changing up either when the plan's done or when you're just like, all right, I don't feel like I'm improving, or I'm getting bored. It's like, those are, well, I've been doing the program for 2 months. Can I repeat it? Is it working for you? Yeah, I'm doing great. Like I absolutely love it. And I'm getting stronger every day. I'm like, well, why get off of it for right now? It's like, then we're okay. That's why I stopped mixing in these deloads. I just feel like every month turn into general pop. I remember when all these coaches used to do it every 4 weeks, they'd mix in a deload. And I know it's probably a better to do than not to do. But if someone's cranking and they're feeling great and mentally they're like, I want to go, I want to go. Like, I don't know how they're recovering. Maybe they need a deload every 3 months. Why am I going to say no to that?
Yeah, it's like I'm deloading every other week.
Are you?
No, I mean, I think what ends up happening is just my schedule gets busy like you, and you're just like, well, I got to do a shorter training session, or I got to do something alternative, or just get it in, right? So I don't know. It's sort of like an organic deload known as life. Um, so, but
I
yeah, my
actually, I actually will never, I'll never, I always make sure I leave a block open in my schedule. Like I'd rather push an appointment off to the next day than turn around and be like, oh my God, I don't have any time to hit it. Like if I can't go in and do it, if I can't go in and move, as long as my program's on, unless I'm taking off, if I have to, if I'm like one of those people going, oh, I'm too busy today, then I've just turned into a mess. Like mentally, I'm not all there. And I just feel
yeah.
like I'm just not in a good place. So that's just a conversation I was having with someone the other day. They're like, oh, I'm just too busy. I'm too busy. I'm like, you got to make time. Like I remember when I was training, 10, 11, 12 people a day, I would purposely not take on a client certain days because I knew it was my only time to get it in. They're like, oh, you're making less money. I don't care. Like I need that for myself. It's part of my survival.
I got a question for you. You don't have to answer it, but it's been a week now, and I was thinking of you because I was watching all these 9/11 documentaries on Netflix and all the HBO. There was a whole
Yeah.
bunch of them, and I was thinking about 20 years and what has happened in 20 years. And obviously, you must have thought about all that stuff and what you were doing
Yeah.
20 years ago and how things have
Yeah.
changed in the last 20 years. Like, what
Yeah.
kind of went through your head? This will probably air, 2 weeks after,
Right.
but
It's weird because every day, every every day, not every day, every year at that time, on that date, every year, you wake up and you kind of have that same feeling. It's like an eerie feeling, like you almost get a chill. And right around 9 a.m. is when, like 8:30, 9 a.m. is when I think it really starts hitting me. Even before that, you a little bit, you start thinking like of the preparation of what these terrorists were doing and how they were preparing, and the families getting on the planes, and people going down to the trade center and getting their morning coffee and riding the elevator up. And I remember actually walking around the trade center. I think it was a week. I think it was the Tuesday before. If I recall correctly, I thought 9/11 happened on a Tuesday.
Yes.
And I do remember that because I remember my client I was training then. She was a Tuesday, Thursday client. She worked out at around 9 a.m. I remember the Tuesday before that, I was walking down by the trade center with my buddy Sean. And I remember walking next to the towers, and we looked up, and it was it's so massive. I was down there hundreds of times because I worked down there a lot. And I remember we started talking about that nut that tried to park the bomb in the garage, whatever it was like years earlier. And we started and we looked, and we're like, what lunatic thinks that we actually started not making a joke about it. We're like, how would you, this building, you can't blow, what are you coming in with an M80 and blowing this building up? Like, how much explosive? And we actually got on that conversation, which talk about irony, never thinking anything like that would happen. And never thinking running planes in the building, they bombed the building. I mean, it was a bomb. Like, there's your bomb. And I mean, they executed it. I think they accomplished what they wanted to accomplish, but it's just such a disgusting day for me. I mean, when you say remember, it's just that you get all these feelings and you remember everything. I mean, I remember, I remember like the music being played. I remember the owner of the training ground, Pat Malone. I remember all of us running in front of the TV for the first bombing. And then just thinking like, oh, what a tragedy, and thinking, I remember initially thinking it was like a Cessna. They were like, a plane hit the towers. And
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it's a Cessna. Thinking to myself, how big's a Cessna? I remember trying to process, like, as we were going down the wall, I was like, all right, how big's a Cessna? Would that have taken out a portion of one floor? Would it have taken out, 2 stories? Is it that big? Like, oh my God, like, I hope no one was by the window. I hope everyone was like, someone must have died. Like, and you just start thinking all these terrible things. And then when you got down and you heard it was a 727, you were like, how does that happen? How does a 727 make that type of mistake? How does it get that close to the building where it's going to make that type of mistake? And you still can't process it. And then when you go back upstairs and you start working and you have this disgusting feeling in your stomach, when the second one hit, you just went blank. You just didn't even didn't understand what you just heard. How is this possible? Like, 2 accidents in a row, like, stupid things are going through your head, like, not even processing that this was deliberate. And then right after that, when the Pentagon got hit, then you were like, holy shit, we're under attack. And then like at that point, I remember turning around to one of my clients. It was like, whatever it was, however much time later, and being like, I'm done. I'm not staying at work. I'm going home. And I remember as I was walking down from 72nd Street, calling my friends. I had one of my best friends worked in the MetLife building. A couple of my friends were training downtown. We were all kind of trying to connect with each other. Couldn't even really get in touch with all of each other. Stuff was going on with the cell towers. And I remember going down to my building, and I lived on the 47th floor, and I had a view of downtown, and I had a view of the West Side. And I was on 57th Street. I remember I was able to go up to my room, but they wouldn't allow us to go to the rooftop at that time. Or I went up to the rooftop and they made me leave. But I just sat there and you just saw smoke, right? And then it was at that point, I remember 9 months after, I did not hear a car horn for 9 months. There wasn't one horn honking. There was no hostility in the city. It was like the balloon was deflated. Everyone was just numb. And I was getting in the cabs. There were no Ubers back then. I was getting in the cabs, and the interior of the cabs were, on several occasions, were lined with American flags. And I'm literally sitting on this American flag in the cab, and the guy like opens the window and he's like, I love this country. I love being here. And I was like, listen, I'm not coming after you. I felt terrible. Like, you hear stories of people beating the crap out of cab drivers in gas station parking lots because, of where they were from, and you hear all these terrible things, and you wonder, and you don't wonder why they're scared shitless. So yeah, I mean, and everyone knew someone in the building. I mean, I had a friend of mine who turned down a deal to work at Canner. He had the contract and decided not to go work there. and he still sleeps on that contract, puts it underneath his mattress to this day. Wife, kids are getting married. Like he's an older gentleman, but he still sleeps with that contract under his bed, just as like a reminder. He just leaves it there for some reason. But just kind of a reminder, like, you dodged one here. And he knew so many people who passed away. One of my old clients actually was the CEO of oh God, it was a company. It was on one of the top floors, and he went to play in. His name was Jimmy Dunn, and I'm trying to think what the Sandler O'Neill. He was the CEO. I think he was the CEO of Sandler O'Neill, and he went to play in like an amateur golf event that day, and he lost his entire firm.
Wow.
His best friend, everyone, his business partner, everyone was gone. So you hear stories like that, and you're like, oh my God, like just it's dramatic when I'm talking about it. I'm not trying to be, but you just kind of fall into this little bit of a tunnel. Like in that, how I just told that story, it's how I told it in 2002, 2003. It hasn't changed. It'll never change.
Yeah. And I mean, in the weeks after, like how did it change your day to day? Did it change, or did you just go back to work? And
we went back to work. It was New York. You just went back to work and you pushed through, and you heard some crazy stories. I actually started working at the Ritz-Carlton Battery Park South. It was supposed to open November of 2001. And that was probably 1,000 yards from the towers. So one of my buddies was the head of construction, and they had to immediately bring him down there to assess the building. And he said there was just bodies everywhere, limbs everywhere. It was just absolutely terrible. But I just remember the smell in the city. It smelled like someone kind of lit plastic on fire. And that smell stuck with you for almost a year. Every day you walked outside and you just felt like you were breathing in this chemical. And then downtown, it's like you couldn't get downtown for a long time. And then they, their efforts to start cleaning it up took, oh my God. I can't remember how much time it took, but even to this day, when you go down there and you look at where Brooks Brothers is, you look at the buildings across the street, and there's shrapnel marks in the buildings. Like there's still holes in some of the buildings. Like there's just certain things they weren't able to clean up, and you see it down there. But everyone had to, I think it might have been something where people might have shut down for a day or two, if I recall. But I think it was like the show had to go on. Like it was New York City. Like you got to push on. You got to get back at it. It really was incredible to see how everyone just, here you just lit the city on fire, and then they just had to go back at the next day and just start moving along. It's a strong city. People are really strong. They're really tough in there. But man,
do you know people who work in the new building?
Do I know people who work in the new building? Off the top of my head, I can't even think of that. I'm sure. I remember in the beginning, people were very hesitant to go in, and they were very hesitant to go up to a top floor. But and then I think what I did hear happen were, because so many firms were just wiped out, and their computers were wiped out, and their whole infrastructure was wiped out. Like they had to now start setting up hubs in Long Island City or hubs in New Jersey. And they didn't have just one office now. They probably took a smaller office and multiplied it by 2, just so, God forbid, something ever happened, they could send someone off, or I think you just prepare. It's like with Hurricane Sandy. It's the last time they're ever putting transformers in the basements of these buildings, right? It's like these floods came in. We saw it at my building. We were down at 88 Greenwich Street, and we came out to Long Island. I'm trying to think when Hurricane Sandy was. Was that 2011? 12? And we came out to the island for the weekend. We were staying at my parents' house with the kids. The kids were really young, and probably 4 and 5. And when the hurricane was coming in, we were like, oh, should we go back to the city? Like, it's New York. Like, a hurricane comes to the city. It's like, all right, stay in your apartment. You're fine. Food's open. You can still get around. Transportation, it's fine. it got hit worse in the city than it did in Long Island. It was bizarre. So we stayed in Long Island because my parents were there, and then we got a call the next day, and they were like, "No, this was I think October of 2012, I think," and they were like, "No, building's gonna be closed till May of next year." And you're like, "May? Like, how the hell kids are gonna go to school?" We're like, "Wait a second." They're like, "Well, the city's gonna give you like an allowance to stay in a hotel," and we were like, Like, our kids are in the school system out here. We stayed in an area of my parents' home, and we just kind of made it happen. And we were really fortunate, but you know, we had to sell our apartment. That took like a year. It was like a transition period. But our building got flooded. They said 30 feet of water. That water went down 3 flights, and completely, like, the gym was in the basement. They said you could have swam down the staircase and swam through the gym. I mean, it was, talk about flood. I mean, the building was wiped out. The elevators were down for months, and it was just these things happen, and the city just like adapts. Like, okay, can't do that again. It's crazy. I mean, do you guys ever? I mean, what's the worst thing weather-wise? You guys don't get bad weather in
No,
Vancouver. Yeah.
no, it's raining and that's about it, right? There's, we might have a 4.0 earthquake for like 5 seconds, and then that happens like 10 years later again. So yeah, we're pretty soft here compared to you guys. And even just seeing like the subways get flooded a couple of weeks ago, that was crazy. I'm like, oh,
That was awful. I think they said did someone drown in the subway system? Someone might have drowned. I mean, it actually did happen at Sandy, where a parking attendant ran down in the parking garage and like shut himself in a car thinking he'd stay dry. And he drowned. The whole garage flooded. I mean, you hear these stories. And what was insane was, I remember the next day after Sandy, I mean, we pivoted to Sandy now. The next day I drove into the city to check on Drive. And I think I came through no, I didn't go through I don't know if I came through the Midtown Tunnel, but I remember it might have been the Midtown Tunnel, it was either the Midtown Tunnel or the Williamsburg. But I remember when I was driving looked fine. And then when I crossed the Drive, I saw things affected a little bit. Then when I got through like Tribeca, there were cars that were up on the sidewalk. I mean, the streets were flooding so much that the cars moved over on the sidewalk. So there were people uptown who were like, "Yeah, we're fine. Like, food's fine. We haven't lost power." And downtown was a war zone. It's incredible that an island that's that small. I mean, New York City's what, 13 miles long or something to that effect, a couple of miles wide. It's like it was literally like you were in different countries. But unfortunately,
but
you got to go through.
Yeah, well, does that mean you totally rule out opening a new brick and mortar gym in New York City?
I mean, I'm not. I don't think I'm doing that anyway. I don't think I'm doing that anyway. I'm enjoying what I'm doing now, and I'm enjoying. Just there was a lot about it that I loved, but I think that it gave me a lot. But I think the bad outweighed the good.
Yeah.
Just even that commute, like 3 hours a day commuting, it's just that's hard on the body, and wanting to be around your family a little bit more. And a lot of the landlords are very difficult, and what you have to go through with them, and I did it for 15 years. I don't have to prove anything anymore. It's not like I went in for a year and was like, "Oh, I was in a year and didn't like it," and like I have some type of a chip on my shoulder that no, I was 15 years is a long time. It's time to go do something else.
Yeah, you've checked off that box.
I'm good, but we did have fun in there. I mean, there was a lot of. I mean, you were in there for a bunch. I mean, you spent what, 6 weeks in there with me at one point?
Oh, at least, yeah, I was there quite a few times. Yeah,
that was amazing. I mean, I was laughing when you came in. It's like Derek comes in. Derek, I never met Derek. Shake his hand, and next thing you know, Derek's teaching every day. Next thing you know, Derek has 24 treadmills of true form showing up. I'm like, "Oh, I like this guy. This is fun." Running courses. When Derek left, I mean, everyone was miserable. They're like, "Derek's gone. What are we gonna do?" It was just, it was great having you in. Obviously, you had to get back to your family, but those are the things. I think those are the things I'll miss. Like the people. That was fun.